All right, so welcome everyone. I'm happy that you were able to join us for a discussion on the application and admission process. I'm Amanda Ostrico, the Assistant Vice Provost and Director of Graduate Enrollment Management here at the University of Kansas. And I have with me my colleague from our Recruitment and Communication Systems team, Abby Ealing, and I'll let Abby quickly introduce herself here too.
Yeah, hi, I'm Abby Ealing. I work with our application system and communication systems previously in graduate admissions. So that's why I'm here helping Amanda today.
Yes, thank you. All right. So I'm just going to spend a minute to go over what we'll discuss today. So as you think about graduate school, we really want to make sure that you know how to find a university and a program that are a good fit for you. We'll talk about what the typical application process looks like, including what it looks like here at KU. We'll spend a little bit of time talking about how you can plan your study, and then we want to make sure that you have some more information on how to make good use of the resources that you have available to you as you apply and really as you're thinking about graduate school. So one way to really think about anything that you're planning for, any big event that you're planning for in your life, is really to think about setting a game plan. So that's why we title this really getting in the game, thinking about the application and admission process for graduate school. Uh, and for any game, there are things that you need to do ahead of time or really to, plan for your pre-game. So for graduate school, you'll really want to think about the things that you've done in the past, in particular with your undergraduate coursework or any, coursework that you maybe have had beyond your undergraduate courses at this point. Really thinking about your interest and your background and how that relates to the interest that you have in graduate school. Some of the common things that you'll want to highlight and really think about as you're looking at graduate programs are, any coursework that you completed with your bachelor's degree, your GPA, and we'll talk a little bit more about GPA later in the presentation. Your undergraduate institution and the experiences that you had there. So, were you able to complete research when you were an undergraduate? Did you have internship or other experiences? Were you able to work as a student assistant during that time? All of those types of things that you were able to do as an undergraduate that could really help you think about how that relates to the graduate program that you're interested in. Um, the GRE or GMAT, some programs will require these types of tests. I can say that it's rare that this is a requirement at the university level. This is normally a program-specific requirement, and fewer programs, certainly at KU and across other universities, are requiring these types of standardized tests. Uh, I mentioned, thinking about research experience or, other type of work experience that had while you were an undergraduate, certainly any volunteer experience that you've had or internships, or maybe you did some tutoring, all those types of things that you might have done that you might not be thinking about as applicable for graduate school, certainly can show, your leadership skills and how you were able to really, apply what you had learned as an undergraduate into some of your activities. And then depending on the goals that you have for your graduate degree, certainly you'll want to think about, if you're looking at a master's degree compared to a doctoral degree, or if you're really interested in both. Part of that is thinking about if you're interested in really doing research and continuing to produce that kind of knowledge for your field, or if you're really more interested in a professional type of degree. So those are the types of degree interests that you'll want to really think about when you're looking at graduate programs. And then thinking about your next steps. So, do you have really what you need to submit, a successful application? Looking at everything that's on the left side of this page, do you have everything that you need as far as what that program is looking for their application? So then, searching specifically for a program, you'll want to, of course, spend some time online searching for programs that you're interested in, talking to individuals in that program, talking to the faculty, talking to current graduate students. You'll find that often faculty and graduate students are really open to talking to prospective students. They like to talk about their program. They like to talk about the research that they're completing. So certainly feel comfortable and feel free to reach out to faculty who are listed on web pages, graduate students who are listed on web pages. A lot of times they really enjoy interacting and talking to prospective students. Um, Certainly, you know, thinking about the location of of the graduate program that you're looking at. So, that also relates to funding and how much it's going to cost to live in that city if you're moving, to a different town. So, for example, in Lawrence, compared to other cities, perhaps that are on the coast, Lawrence is a pretty low cost of living, and so, thinking about how much it costs to live in the city that you're interested in compared to your program interests. So one example I always kind of like to share is we had a graduate assistant who previously worked in our office in graduate admissions who was admitted to a KU program. She was also admitted to a program near Washington, D.C. And, you know, she really was interested in both programs, and when it came to funding, she had really great funding opportunities for both programs. And so fortunately for her, she didn't have to worry as much about the funding piece, but she also recognized, of course, there are differences between living in really Baltimore, where she was looking at, compared to Lawrence. Um, and ultimately, her decision came down to, based on her research interests, not only were the faculty that she was interested in working with important to her, but her particular research area, the location was actually really important for her research field, for the type of information that she was studying. And so there's a lot to think about. I guess I'll just say, when you're thinking about the location of the university that you're looking at, whether that's funding, or really the community itself, or even the research that you're doing, and if that's the type of community that you need to be in to conduct that type of research. Um, I mentioned certainly, talking to faculty and current graduate students, postdocs, postdoctoral staff members in the program also certainly have a lot of experience in that research area and can be really great to talk to. And then another group that I encourage folks to connect with are staff members in the graduate program. So it's pretty typical that a graduate program will have what we call our graduate coordinators, and you'll find them often listed on the website as the main point of contact, on our program page, where we have information about what the program requires for the application and their contact information. Often the staff member, the graduate program coordinator, is listed as the contact. And that's often a person that prospective students will interact with first when they're looking for graduate programs. They'll interact with that person once they're a graduate student, to really make sure that they're making progress toward their degree and that they're meeting all of their requirements. And then often they're one of the last people that they interact with when they're graduating, because that person often is confirming that they've met the requirements for graduation. So I say all that to say that that is a really good person, the graduate coordinator, to reach out to. They are usually very responsive, and even if they're not the one who can answer your question, they can really often connect you to those students or faculty or others in their program who really can then contact you and answer the questions that you have. All right, so I guess I have one more slide here, then I'll turn it over to Abby. So again, kind of thinking about this game analogy, it's also really helpful to figure out, who can serve as a coach or mentor for you. And this can be a lot of different individuals. So faculty are certainly, one really great resource and a great group of mentors when it comes to working with students to identify really what their interests are and how graduate school could benefit them. But there are a lot of other individuals who can serve in that coaching or mentor role. So, a supervisor could certainly serve in that role. It could be a fellow classmate, or it could be a good friend or family member. I mean, it's really someone who you look to for advice and know would provide some honest and really helpful feedback to you. So I would encourage you to look at, really the people, in your life, whether that's, personal connections or professional connections, or as part of your undergraduate program, that really can help to, kind of serve as that sounding board for you. And I know this was something that Jen Roberts, our Vice Provost for Graduate Studies, mentioned a little bit in her presentation earlier this week, and she really encouraged folks to think broadly about who could serve as those mentors, because it's going to be really helpful to have that diverse perspective when you're looking at graduate programs and making that important decision. All right, so I will turn it over to Abby now to talk a little bit more about the specific details of the application process.
Yeah. So yeah, after you'll want to talk to your faculty mentors, whoever that mentor might be, your supervisor. The next step would be kind of finding those programs that would be a fit for you, visiting websites. If you specifically, faculty would probably be helpful in giving you suggestions of what those schools might be. They would know kind of their industry and be able to say, what schools are strong or might be a good fit for you. There's also a couple, or I can think of at least one. There's something called gradschoolmatch.com. That might be something helpful for you too. It's kind of like a dating profile where you enter some information about yourself, about what your research interests are, like what your interests are, kind of what your program interests might be. And then schools also use it and can search based off those interests and reach out to you. You can reach out to schools through there if they're signed up through it. A lot of KU programs use it. So that could be something that could be of interest in helping you find programs. But otherwise, visiting program websites, once you've there's also various Google searches to just kind of finding, if you kind of know the program you want, putting in those keywords will pull some stuff up for you. But looking at the program websites and really looking at, the program structure of that degree, maybe what the career outcomes are, and seeing if they have any profile of alumni. So that just visiting their website should give you kind of an idea about if the program would be a good fit for you. And then if there are, like Amanda said, if there are contacts on the website for graduate students or alumni, sometimes they have a way to contact with alumni, or if you can talk to the graduate coordinator, then being able to talk to some of them specifically about how they felt in the program. I think the most important piece probably is I say the most important piece is finding the right fit for the program. So Amanda gave that example of the location was important. Just finding the right fit where you feel comfortable and you feel like you're going to be supportive and it's going to meet your goals are really important. So talking to people, looking at their website are all important things. I think too, identifying your, what your goals are, being clear about that, your career goals, and seeing how the different programs might be able to help you achieve those goals are good. So you also on their websites find information about deadlines and timelines. They'll also have information about the specific requirements for their application. One thing we wanted to point out is for KU graduate programs, we have program profiles on our website, so you can kind of look at it to see percentage of funding offers, percentage. There's different how long it typically takes to earn the degree. There's some information like that on those profiles that you can see on the right side of the screen there. You can go to the next slide, Amanda. So then the most common application materials are, a proof of a bachelor's degree. And that usually would come in the form of a transcript, which I think we'll get to in a minute. Then that's if English is not your native language, then providing proof of English proficiency. And then there's other supplementary materials like a personal statement, resume, that we'll get to here in a minute. So for the GPA requirement, many schools require at least a 3.0 GPA to be admitted. But I would say, like, I know the KU policy is being updated now to say that that there isn't a minimum GPA requirement. Some departments could, I guess, from the university level, some departments could have a higher GPA requirement. So you would want to verify that. They should list that on their website. But most institutions probably kind of have a general 3.0 with there being some flexibility. And then as far as English proficiency goes, and again, that's for those that whose native language is not English. Most schools will take TOEFL, IELTS. More and more schools are taking the PTE test. If you've earned a degree from a U.S. institution, a lot of that will count for a lot of places. But once again, that would be something that you would just want to check. The requirements that we have listed here are the KU requirements for as far as the English or the test scores go. If you earn a degree from KU or another U.S. institution, that would also qualify. If you went to a foreign institution where the language of instruction for that institution was English, that would also qualify. So there's a few different ways to do that. So then other common requirements, the personal statement, I would venture to say is maybe the one of the most important pieces of the application. It's where you really can write out what your goals are, how you think you would fit in the program, or like why you think you would be a good fit for the program. Kind of selling yourself to the admissions committee. So I, definitely we would recommend having other people read it. If you have access to a writing center, going there and really putting a lot of, most of your effort in the application towards that personal statement. It really can put you ahead where some maybe black and white numbers don't look as great. Like the personal statement can help you shine there. Go ahead.
And what I was going to add to that too is sometimes a common question we receive is, if my GPA is a little bit lower, or if maybe I haven't taken, quite all of the courses that this program might need for their, admission for their graduate program, how can I address that? And this is another place where, besides what Abby was saying, that, absolutely make sure that you're connecting what your interests are and how they fit with the program. But if there are ways to provide context for those types of things, and you can really show how you still are prepared, and here's why, or you've overcome your lower GPA, and here's why, or here's what happened. Certainly, only share what you're comfortable sharing, but I always tell applicants that it's better for you to share that story than for the committee to make assumptions. And so that's also another really good place to provide context on your background, your academic career, how you're prepared, that they might not able to otherwise be able to see from, only looking at your transcript.
So then the letters of recommendation, most programs require 2 or 3. It's common for the letters to come from faculty, previous faculty, mentors, maybe, but it can be also acceptable to have a letter from like your supervisor. Some programs will specifically list out who they want to see. It kind of depends on the program. I think some master's program that are more like practical, or the more why am I not thinking the word, the more professional, thank you, I'm sorry. The more professional programs might want a supervisor as one of the recommenders. But they should be listing that in their requirements for what they're looking for with that. otherwise, if you're not sure, you could always ask the graduate coordinator, the staff contact in the program, and they could help you determine what that is. And the other thing that it'll likely ask you is if you want to waive the right to see the letter. When you're going through the application process, the application itself will ask you if you want to waive the right to see the letter or not, yes or no. And so that basically means that if you waive the right, then you can't ask to see it later. If you don't waive the right, then you could ask to see it. Some faculty might not, or some like recommenders might not write you the recommendation if you don't waive the right. So it's just kind of it's up to you whether you want to waive the right or not. But definitely, I know, like when I applied to graduate school, my recommenders sent me the letter beforehand anyways, so, or after they submitted it. So it kind of depends on your relationship with your letter writer, but that's a point where some might not write it if you don't waive the right, but just kind of that's what the waive the right means. Waive the right to see it means. Go ahead, Amanda. So like Amanda said, the GRE is becoming less and less of a requirement, but it'll be pretty specific to the program. It's more common at the like PhD level, the doctoral level, than it is at the master's level. But certainly, you know, like if it is required, you know, you could take it multiple times, practice beforehand. Definitely, it does cost money. So whenever you take it, just you'd want to make sure that you're giving it your all for when you take it, so that way you don't have to take it more than once, hopefully. Go ahead.
And I'll just say on that note, and I'll put it in the chat here, the GRE does have a process by which they review applications to have a fee waiver reduction for the GRE exam. And so I'll put that link in the chat here so that folks can access that and see if you might qualify for that.
Good point. So then as far as transcripts go, I think almost every school would probably require a transcript. It would be your proof of a bachelor's degree. Most schools are accepting a copy of an official transcript for the review, so you could have a scanned copy of that available. And it would be a copy of your official transcript, not an advising report or something you can get from the online system. It would need to be an official transcript, but you could, you know, have a copy of it scanned and ready to upload with the application. And then most schools, you know, like for KU, if you have a degree from KU, you don't need to send it in an official copy. But if your degree is not from, your bachelor's degree is not from KU, then you would need to send that official transcript if you are admitted by the second semester of enrollment. So you would have a little bit of time to submit that, but you would still need to submit the official copy that is sent directly from your bachelor's institution to KU by that second semester of enrollment. And I would say many schools are doing it that way too. You upload a scanned copy with your application, and then you need to submit your official one after you're admitted and enrolled. So then gather, I guess we would recommend that you gather kind of, you know what the application requirements are. You gather all the materials that you'll need. If GRE is required, you would send those directly from ETS to the institution. Separately, English proficiency works the same. If you have a test score, you would need to send those directly from the testing agency to the institution. But then once you're ready to, you have all the materials gathered, complete the online application. We have the link for KU's application here. You can, you know, it should be fully electronic. You can submit your letter of recommendation requests through there. So it'll ask you for your 3 or 2, however many is required, it'll ask for that many in the application, and you'll enter their name and email in there and a couple other information. And then it'll send them an email to go submit the form. They'll then get the recommender will then get an email to log into a system to submit everything. But so you'll do that through the application. You don't have to do it separately. Like I said, you can scan your transcript and upload it in the application. And then it should also, like, if there's any other supplemental material requirements, personal statement, resume, writing sample, that will all be, you can upload those in the online application too. And so then you'll submit the application and pay the fee through the form. And then it'll move on to, go ahead, Amanda. So then it'll move on to the department. So for at KU at least, the applications are reviewed first at the program level, program department level. And so they will be reviewing the application with all the materials. They usually give a little bit of time. So say the deadline is December 1st, and they'll give a couple weeks for some of those materials to come in that are outside of the application. So, those test scores, letter of recommendations. I would recommend you can start. I mean, of course, the application will be open early. And so I would recommend getting them there as soon as you want to apply to that program, to send those recommendation requests off. Some programs want the letters of rec and all the materials to be in by the deadline. So if the deadline is December 1st, then they want all the materials in by the December 1st, the application and any supporting materials. So, but some will give you a little bit of time to submit that afterwards. So that's another thing. You'll want to just make sure that you understand, either by asking the program coordinator if that's the case, or just making sure everything is in before that deadline. So they're going to look at, once they have everything, they're going to look at all the things you submitted. They're going to look for, fit of research interest, experience, your previous experience, your professional experience, kind of looking at your whole package to determine whether to admit or not. So then just kind of going over the whole review process. So, you'll apply through the online application, pay the application fee. The application then goes to the program or department. They will review the application, look at all those materials, and then forward the decision. They'll mark it as admit or deny. If it's an admission, then for some areas, it'll go to like the school or here at the College of Arts and Sciences. And I guess I should say, this is how it works here at KU. I would say generally, there's a similar process where there's multiple rounds of reviews on the application. And so some schools might have kind of a central office looking at minimum requirements first, and then they forward it on. Here at KU, it does go to the program first. They do their review. The school or college reviews it, and then it comes to the central graduate admissions office to make sure that the minimum university requirements are met. And then that's where the graduate admissions office would then issue the decision letter from there.
All right. So now I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about funding and really the acceptance process, and then we should have certainly some time for questions here. So again, going back to how important it is to think about financing your graduate education. I wanted to spend just a minute talking about some of the most common ways that you'll see for how graduate students fund their education. So, here at KU, and I'd say this is also typical at other institutions, there are 3 different types of assistantships that graduate students could have. So one is a graduate research assistantship, or GRA, where students are appointed at a certain level and they are expected to do research as part of their job. So it's typical that they would be appointed at what we would say is 40%, or sorry, 50%, which would be 20 hours a week. So if you think about 100% appointment as 40-hour work week, half of that would be 20 hours a week. And so it's typical that certainly in those research areas with doctoral programs, those programs that have external grants that support their research often would have GRA positions that they're able to allocate to those students. Um, Another common form is a graduate teaching assistantship or a GTA, where again, the students are appointed at a certain level. 50% is typical, where they're expected to work generally 20 hours a week. And with a GTA position, those students are assigned to teaching courses, and that's really what's expected for that employment. And then a graduate assistantship or GA is the third type of what we call our 3G positions. And these positions support offices, and they're really geared for students who are going into professional areas. And so you'll often find these in our museums. I mentioned we had a graduate assistant in our office in graduate admissions. You'll certainly find those types of positions where individuals are interested in working in education areas or other public sector areas. And all of these positions offer additional benefits. So, earlier I mentioned the 40% part. So anyone who's appointed at least a 40% or higher rate gets in-state tuition as part of their benefits with these appointments. And then each position also has a different level of benefits with them. Um, each certainly also has benefits with health insurance at the 50% or higher rate, and then for GRAs and GTAs, there's also tuition that is sponsored as part of those appointments, and then graduate assistants, while tuition might not necessarily be sponsored automatically, there are some units that certainly do sponsor that tuition, but at a minimum, 40% GAs do get in-state tuition. So those are positions that typically are allocated to students who are looking to enroll full time, and they have these part-time assistantships, and that's really a helpful way to fund and get a salary. I guess I should also say, these are employment, and so you would get a salary as a biweekly paycheck as part of these positions, and then in addition you would have tuition benefits as well as health insurance benefits. And then other common ways to finance your graduate degree are through fellowships, scholarships, or some other form of sponsorship. And this could be for any variety of students. So it could be for that full-time student who also has one of those 3G appointments. It could also be for a part-time student who maybe is working full-time. So for example, both Abby and I enrolled in graduate programs while we were working full-time here at KU, and KU, as our employer, sponsored part of our tuition as part of that. There certainly are a lot of students who work we're near the Kansas City area. There are certainly a lot of individuals who have full-time jobs, in the Kansas City area, and their employers might sponsor all or some of their tuition. This happens a lot, certainly in, the, you know, construction and some of the other big fields that we have in the Kansas City areas. We'll find that our students who are sometimes at our Edwards campus, which is our satellite campus in Kansas City. Sometimes, they're part-time students who have their employers who are helping to sponsor their tuition. And then there are also certainly other sponsorships that are available out there for students. And so here I would say, a lot of this is going to depend on your program, how you're enrolling in your program, but certainly look at all of the different ways in which you might be able to fund your education, and don't assume that things aren't open to you. So again, I'll use my own degree as an example. I worked full time. KU sponsored part of my tuition, but not all of it. And my degrees are from our School of Education. And the School of Education here has a number of scholarships that they allocate to students, and a lot of them are smaller awards where it's not going to cover your full tuition. But if you're a part-time student like I was, it was really helpful to cover, maybe one class. So definitely look at what your program offers, what the university might offer. And as part of that, I would encourage everyone to submit either a FAFSA if you're a domestic student, or there's an international form you can submit if you're an international student, just to make sure that your record is on file to be considered for all the possible funding that's out there. And I'll give a plug to our funding presentation that's tomorrow. So tomorrow, someone from our Financial Aid and Scholarships office will provide a presentation really on all of the details on how to look at different ways for funding as a graduate student. Um, so then I would say, keep in mind, certainly as, is the case with pretty much anything in graduate school, that the funding, like I mentioned, is really going to depend on your program and your particular situation as a graduate student. Um, so, make sure you're looking at all the options that are out there, and then once you do get some of those offers, you should get them in writing. If you don't, just certainly make sure that you're asking the program to send it in writing. I think it's not common that you wouldn't get it in writing, but certainly just like with anything, you want to make sure that you have that information in writing. And then again, kind of going back to, our thinking about, graduate school, thinking about our game or, business type of analogy, once you've been admitted, certainly make sure you either accept or decline your offer if you're, kind of depending on how many schools you've looked at. Make sure that you've really looked at the items that we've discussed. What type of funding were you offered? Have you had a chance to visit the institution or at least talk to students and faculty in the program? I mean, visiting right now still might not be an option, but Zoom has made it really a lot easier to at least have a chance to interact with people in the program. Like Abby was saying earlier, you do really want to make sure that it's a good fit for you personally. Um, you know, if you're going to be in the program for a while, and if you're going to be a doctoral student and you might be enrolled for 5 years or more, you want to make sure that is a good fit for you, for your family, whatever else you might need to be thinking about as far as being a member of that community, that's a good place for you to be a student as well as really live for a number of years. All right. And then certainly no matter what you do, respond, you'll be asked to respond, either in writing, or you'll be asked to, go to a form to indicate whether you accept or decline an offer. And I guess I would just, reiterate to make sure to be professional in those communications and not to burn any bridges. Those faculty and staff and students that you're interacting with, are in your broader field. It's pretty likely you're going to be interacting with those folks in the future, and just you want to make sure that you've built good relationships with those individuals, whether or not you ultimately choose to enroll in that program. So then finally, and we've listed this website a couple of times in the presentation, the graduate admissions page is where you'll go, at least for KU, to start an application or to submit an inquiry form. So there's the apply to KU button would link you to the application. That See Programs button, and I can put that actual link in the chat here, is where you would find all of the application requirements and contact information for your specific program. And then that Request Info button is if you're at this point still kind of looking at programs and just want some more general information, you could submit an inquiry form, and then the program will really start to send you more information. All right, and so that is the end of our formal presentation here. So let me stop recording and then we'll go ahead and take some questions here.